The grandparents are about to be tried for their hatred of the wolf pack. Their distorted views and cruel actions will be punished by the law. The wolf family stands on the side of justice but also has complex emotions. Who will win in this battle between justice and hatred? Chapter 65. I don't think it's a good idea for the boys to be in college. Anthony rubbed his eyes and took a long sip of his steaming coffee. The kitchen clock showed it was nearly past 7 in the morning, and he was seriously contemplating pulling Hunter out of college. Being 18, Hunter was legally required to attend, and with Jacob's 18th birthday fast approaching, their newfound responsibilities as werewolf hunters were becoming increasingly difficult to balance with their education. I don't either. Margot sighed, her maternal concern evident in her furrowed brow. Hunter had become increasingly reticent about his studies, and she worried the stress would soon overwhelm both her sons. Should we just let them sleep in today? Anthony suggested, his tone reflecting his role as the family's decision-maker. If Hunter's tutor calls again, I'll inform her he won't be returning. There's nothing she can do about it. Margot nodded in agreement, just as the front door swung open, revealing Flora. The independent grandmother had been up since dawn, indulging in her daily ritual of exploring the forest's perimeter. Flora, me began, his voice tinged with hesitation. I don't mean to sound rude, but when are you planning to head home? Flora paused, a gentle chuckle escaping her lips. Well, dearie, she replied, her confidence unwavering. I can leave whenever you tire of me. I only intended to stay until the end of the lunar cycle. It's always wonderful to have you, Mom, Argo said, enveloping Flora in a warm embrace. You're welcome to visit as often as you like. Once we move back to our old home, it'll be much more spacious then. I understand. Love, Flora replied, returning the hug. This house can feel cramped quickly. One extra person is quite enough. She kissed her daughter's cheeks, having already packed her belongings. Your father misses me. And you too. He'll visit in a few weeks. Margot smiled, savoring the moment with her mother. I'd rather you weren't involved in all this werewolf hunting business anyway, Margot admitted. Don't worry, Flora reassured her, her eyes twinkling with pride. Young Jacob will handle it. It's his mission, after all, and my clever hunter will guide him. They'll make an excellent team. She stepped back, picking up her bag. Well, wet. It'd best be off now. Would you like some food or tea before you go? Anthony offered, rising to give her a farewell hug. No, thank you. And don't fret about my travels, Flora said with a wink. I may be old, but I can still put up a mean fight. I don't doubt that for a second. Anthony chuckled. I know Hunter will be disappointed he didn't see me off, but he'll be back before long. Flora's eyes sparkled with the promise of adventure, and Margot knew her mother would likely spend her time exploring the country with her husband, indulging in her love for the outdoors and new experiences. But let them both know you said, Margot promised, watching as her adventurous mother prepared to embark on her next journey. Okay, I love you all. See you soon. When she was gone, Anthony put his arms around his wife and pulled her against his chest. She hugged him back and closed her eyes. I can't wait to move back into our old house. I know. Anthony breathed out a content sigh. But we should keep this home for a little getaway if life gets too much. I've learned to love it, and I know Hunter has too. Margot lifted her head and looked up into his eyes. I once got to live with us. H.E.S. so lovely man, and I or William. I can't bear the thought of them struggling. I know William can get a job to support him, but we have an opportunity for them to live better. I think they do like living with people instead of being alone in a house that's most likely full of memories about Grace. Just then, Jacob landed on the floor and narrowly missed hitting his head against the table. Margot jumped and clung onto Anthony while Jacob spat out water and wiped wet hair from his face. He was gasping for air, soaking wet and looking a little confused. Jacob, are you all right? Anthony ran over and helped him up. Where on earth have you been? He coughed and shook from the cold. I woke up and Hunter was having a horrible dream about drowning. I accidentally transported into a lake because I was thinking about water. Margot tried to ignore the fact that her son was most likely dreaming about that horrible day all those years ago. Oh, you poor thing. Her eyes examined his wet clothes until Hunter's bedroom door opened, and her son popped his head out with messy bed hair and distressed eyes. What's going on? He croaked and frowned at Jacob. What happened to you? I teleported into some water. Hunter's face went a little serious, knowing it was his fault because of his nightmare. Are you okay? Yeah, just a bit cold. He whispered. Come on. You need a shower. Hunter lightly pulled him towards the bathroom. I need to talk to him about my parents. Anthony thought to Margot. It's about time I knew how he was really feeling. When they reached the bathroom, Hunter also entered and shut the door behind him. Jacob turned with a questioning frown. What? I need a shower too. But Jacob stuttered, making him smile. He placed his hands on his shoulders. It's okay. We're saving water. Jacob's cheeks flamed bright pink and his eyes darted around the small room, trying to avoid Hunter's intense stare. The section. He trailed off, not really knowing what to say. Hunter watched him with a very calm and gentle approach. Our relationship is never going to move forwards if you're scared to do anything. It's only a shower, but a huge milestone for us. Hunter moved his hands down to the bottom of his wet t-shirt and casually tugged on it. There's really nothing to worry about. He lifted his t-shirt and allowed his warm fingers to soak up his cold skin. Jacob shuddered at the touch of his fingers brushing against his stomach. He knew he needed to get over the fear of embarrassment and his self-hate. Hunter likes him just the way he is. He could feel it. But does he like himself enough to strip away his protective walls? No, he doesn't. Remember, Hunter's voice was quiet, almost like he was worried 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐠𝐬𝐷. We're good enough for each other. Jacob's heart believed him, but his head didn't. However, he was right that nothing would ever happen between them if he was too afraid. He needed to step up, get over his fears and allow someone to love him because he deserved it. It was about time he had faith not only in others but within himself too. He stepped back from Hunter and peeled his wet t-shirt from his body. He pulled it over his head and dropped it to the ground. Hunter wanted to show his pride, but he stayed calm and pulled his t-shirt off too. Jacob's cheeks were now a deep shade of red as he watched Hunter pull off his shorts and chuck them in the laundry basket. He was naked and Jacob envied his confidence. His feelings and expression didn't alter one bit because to him, there was no issue in other people seeing his raw form. Jacob's fingers hesitated at his waistline. Hunter has already seen him naked. There was absolutely nothing for him to stress about. So he took a deep breath and pulled off his pajama bottoms. Hunter stayed completely still, except his eyes were not afraid to wander. He enjoyed what he saw and was ashamed to admit it. Yet he knew 𝐊𝐬𝐧𝐼 smothered Jacob with compliments. 𝐿𝐻𝐬𝐧𝐼 get to shy and uncomfortable, so he acted completely normal and stepped into the shower. Do you like hot showers? He asked and started fiddling with the handles. Yes, Jacob whispered and very slowly followed. His heart was pumping through his chest and he was very alert. He felt like a million eyes were on him. The shower then turned on and poor Hunter was the victim of ice-cold water hitting his head. He let out a little cry and jumped out of the way. This seemed to soften his mate's dense body, who reached up and twisted it to warm water. I'm definitely awake now. Hunter chuckled and tenderly pushed Jacob underneath the sprinkling water. I'm sorry that you heard my dream this morning. Jacob dodged eye contact like the plague and avoided looking down as the warm water hugged his cold skin. You have that dream often, he mumbled. I know. Hunter sighed, but he didn't want to talk about it right now, so he grabbed a bottle of shampoo and squeezed some onto Jacob's hair, who froze when he started rubbing it in. I would offer for you to wash me in return, but I don't think we're quite at that stage yet. He grinned with a cheeky twinkle in his eyes. Jacob closed his own and tried so hard not to feel immensely awkward. Hunter was stepping closer. He almost couldn't believe that he was showering with Jacob. He has come such a long way in a short amount of time. He was so happy that he could trust him like this. We haven't had our morning hug and kiss yet," he declared in his thoughts. Now, Jacob's heart was really thumping in his chest and Hunter felt a huge wave of nerves pass through him. His soapy hands lowered down the back of his neck and linked around his shoulders. He was slow while he very softly pushed their bodies together. Jacob's eyes remained shut, but he could feel every outline of Hunter touching him. He couldn't suppress the shiver of pleasure which invaded his spine. "Don't hide your affection. Just let it flow freely. There's nobody here judging you, and you know I like making you feel this way." Hunter's deep and silky voice was to Jacob's mind. He took a breath and relaxed into him. He loosely wrapped his arms around his back and rested his head on his shoulder. His soapy hair got all over the side of Hunter's face, but he didn't mind. "Are you proud of yourself?" Hunter thought. Jacob slowly nodded. He thought it would take him months to build the courage, although Hunter has always been very open with how he feels, and that is what he needed. He always wished he could read people's minds so he knew what they were thinking. Even if he couldn't read Hunter's thoughts, hed still know how he was feeling because hes ruthful about it. "I'm sorry I'm so closed off. It's hard for me to express. You don't have to explain yourself. We're all different." "I understand." Hunter pulled his head back to see his eyes still shut, but the shampoo was running down his face. He gave him a kiss and received one back immediately. Jacob said out loud. "I taste soap." Hunter chuckled and pushed him back under the running water. His eyes lowered and explored every perfect inch of him. He couldn't believe that he was so self-conscious of such a wonderful body. Jacob took a breath and opened his eyes to see the werewolf's gaze shoot back up. Hunter grinned, oozing out his confidence. "Are you warmer now?" "Yes." Jacob moved and allowed his mate to share the warmth of the water. The shower was small and only just squeezed them both in. Hunter was careful not to touch him in delicate places with his hands. He wasn't sure if his flustered cheeks could take it or not. "So what are we doing today?" Hunter asked and squeezed shampoo onto Jacob's hands, expecting him to wash his hair in return. "Questioning my grandparents. Are we just gonna barge into their home? I don't think we have to force it. We don't know how much they know about us, so it could be like a visit or something. They've met you already." "Good idea. But I think it's best if my pack and Dad's pack wait close by in case something happens." Hunter knew he didn't really need a backup because Jacob's powers are much stronger than a simple werewolf. "Okay." Jacob watched him put his head under the water and took the opportunity to glance down. His pupils dilated and he pursed his lips together. He instantly took his gaze back to Hunter's face because his intent. One day soon, he won't be so clueless with his affection and he won't be so embarrassed. It was getting through this stage that was hard for him. Yet he was already completing the first phase to loving himself. He was letting someone else peek through the walls of his insecurities and witness his authentic image. Eventually, Hunter will knock them to the ground and set him free. He could not wait for that day, and now, he knew it would unmistakably come. Chapter 66. When the boys were done in the shower, Jacob got dressed rather quickly. However, he was relaxed and didn't feel too awkward in Hunter's presence. Hunter pulled on his jeans and rubbed his hair with a towel. He turned to face Jacob, who started to fidget. "I hope you didn't feel pressured into doing that." "I didn't." Jacob was fast to reply. I'm glad it happened. I felt comfortable and I never thought I would in that situation." Hunter smiled that dazzling smile. "I'm glad. One milestone at a time is good for us. I quite like this slow approach to things because I'll know you on a personal level when we become more committed to this relationship." Jacob nodded and chewed on his bottom lip. "I was worried you'd think it was going to slow." Hunter shook his head and threw his wet towel at him. "Don't be silly. I'll wait my whole life for you, Jacob Jones. No matter how irresistible you are." Jacob's smile grew as he looked down to his hands and bit his bottom lip. Hunter groaned and covered his heart with his hand. "You're so cute. Waiting for you will be hard though." Anthony looked up when the boys left a steamy bathroom. "Spicing up your relationship, I see." He grinned but was promptly nudged by Margot when Jacob's cheeks started to heat up. "That is none of your business." Hunter glanced at his mate while he eyed up the breakfast. "I'd rather see a pork sausage instead of mine." "Hunter, Margot cowled and held in her laughter when Jacob's eyes popped out of his head. However, he had a comeback this time. That is debatable. It caught Hunter by surprise and he raised his eyebrows rather quickly. "You saucy mother F." "Hunter, Anthony warned. "Go and flirt somewhere else. I would like to eat my breakfast and keep it in my stomach, thank you very much. I know you're nervous, but this has to be done." Hunter spoke in a hushed tone. They were standing at the bottom of Jacob's grandparents' home. "It's our mission." Jacob looked up to the familiar house. It was medium, semi-detached, and didn't have very much character. It was stale-looking with a cold atmosphere, even from the outside. The decor on the outside was dated, which left Hunter's imagination to roam freely about what the inside looked like. Jacob took a big breath, squeezed Hunter's hand very tightly, and walked with him to the front door. They gave each other a look of reassurance before ringing the doorbell. The sound seemed to stop and the silence grew very noticeable. Hunter and Anthony's pack were close by. Nathan's pack and Brad's new pack were also notified about this situation, so they had that if things took a turn for the worst. Jacob thought about bringing his dad with him, but he didn't want to drag him into this mess. Suddenly, quick footsteps sneaked up behind him and they both turned with worried eyes. But it was only William. "What are you doing here?" Hunter hissed. He had no time to explain before the front door opened, and they were all staring at the homophobic grandfather. He had a natural frown, but it seemed to deepen when he saw Jacob and Hunter. His eyes were grumpy until William popped out from behind them. "Hi, Granddad. We thought we'd visit for a few hours. Is that okay?" He smiled, trying to sweet-talk his way in. His grandfather's name is Thomas. He has lived in this city all his life and met his wife Jillian when he was on his first werewolf hunting mission. They were both only 18 and both forced into it by their parents, but they loved the thrill of killing something unnatural. Their sickening minds found it incredibly satisfying. Thomas stared at Hunter long enough to make him feel uncomfortable. "No, you can't." His voice was croaky and dull, but that was how he usually spoke when Jacob was around. "We're busy today." "What with?" "Maybe we can help," William added. "Trust me, kid, you don't want to help with this." Thomas had his eyes on Hunter the whole time. "I think they know about you," Jacob thought. "I think so too." Hunter connected a mind link with his parents and already told them what he thought. Well, are you sure? We came all this way, and it would be a shame to waste it." William knew when to stop pushing his luck, and that was soon. Alpha, Sam suddenly invaded Hunter's mind. "ZAC didn't make it home last night. Nobody has seen him since yesterday morning." "Okay, thanks, Sam. Tell everyone to keep trying to connect a mind link with him." Hunter allowed Jacob's thoughts back into his head, but he was worried now. ZAC never keeps secrets from his family. Yes, he was a little unsure about Jacob and how it would help the pack if his alpha was gay, but he sucked it up and got over it. Now that he discovered Jacob was a god, being in this pack was an incredible and honorable achievement. Something about his disappearing act didn't feel right, and Hunter didn't want to think about him being disloyal. "Yes, I'm sure." Thomas looked at William with a stern nod. "Now go. You're interrupting our day." Jacob wished they were nicer. He wished they were like Flora, who loved her grandchild and would express her love even through a simple smile. "All right, It was nice seeing you today." William tried to stay polite, but that really annoyed him. When they turned to leave, Thomas had one more thing to say which would clarify how much he knew about the 𝐊𝐲𝐻 family. "Oh, excuse me? Your name was Hunter Wasted." Hunter turned to see a sinister twinkle in his eyes. He nodded and suddenly felt very on edge. "You'll expect to see your little log cabin in the papers later today, then yes." Everyone frowned. How did he know? It's a pity how fire spreads so fast. And with that said, Thomas backed into his house and shut the door. What was that all about? William trailed off with a heavy beating heart. "Do you think he?" "No way. They wouldn't." Jacob furrowed his eyebrows when a vivid image came to him. "They're trying to set your house on fire." Hunter's mind went into overdrive and shut down. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. All he could do was warn his parents, who were thankfully not too far away. He turned and started running down the street. "Is it true?" William whispered. Jacob nodded and started running after him. "Dad," Hunter yelled when he approached the truck parked at the end of the road. "They're setting our home on fire." "What?" Anthony sat up and leaned out of the window. "I hope you're joking." "I'm not," Hunter breathed. He was panicked. "Their granddad said he'd expect to see our house in the news later because it's a pity how fire spreads. We need to go now." Margot covered her mouth and swallowed the lump in her throat. She didn't want to lose that house. Not today. Hunter motioned for William to hurry up, who jogged over. "Where's Jacob?" "He transported to your house. I think 𝐻E's going to try and stop it." "Hunter, don't freak out. He can tell us what's happening and he might stop it before it causes any serious damage. You have to trust him, and I know it's hard for you to admit it, but 𝐻E's stronger than you. Now jump in." "We'll head back straight away." Anthony turned on the car as everyone jumped in. Thomas and Jillian looked out of their window and watched the truck speed past. They turned to each other and laughed. "He has got a nerve turning up and trying to get into our house. Who does he think he is? But this means he knows about us, doesn't it?" Jillian asked. "Yes, it does. And we can't have that. We need to wipe out that Wolf family before they spread the word." Jacob quickly arrived on the field outside of Hunter's house. He couldn't fully master a perfect landing and stumbled to his knees. He looked up and only smelled the fresh summer air. He saw no smoke, no flames, and no ruin home. But who he did see was Vic, sitting on the wooden steps with what looked like a new pack. 3 of the members were holding down 3 people, and maybe he caught the wolf hunters just in time. He started walking over when Vic stood up and headed in his direction too. He understood that Jacob was fond of new people, and he could already see him wringing his hands. When they were a few meters apart, Vic dropped to one knee and bowed respectfully. Jacob knew he would never find that not awkward, but it was a little satisfying watching Vic do it after everything he has done. When he rose, he looked like he had a lot to apologize for, but kept the more topic on the surface. "Hi, Jacob. I know my dad is helping important, and I thought it was about time we actually each other, so I came here, but there was nobody in. We were planning to wait until these humans sneaked around the back and tried to the house. We captured them only a few minutes ago, and they're refusing to speak." Jacob intensely listened, but a sigh of relief could not be held back. "I'm so glad you got here first," he whispered and looked at everyone behind him. Is this your pack?" "Yes, all of them are much nicer and respectful than my old members. I lost control, and it was for the best that we were split up. I think I have a lot to learn from Hunter." Jacob nodded and chewed on his bottom lip. He did have a lot to learn. Hunter is great in his role of being the alpha. 𝐻E's confident, fair, considerate, tough when needed, and a great leader. They'll be here soon. It was strange for him to think of Vic as a relative. He still didn't know how he felt about it, but in the long term, it should hopefully be a positive thing. "Thank you for helping." "That's all right. Anyone would." His voice was silenced by a sudden explosion, echoing through the field and overtaking everyone's ears. Vic jumped and spun on his heels at the deafening noise. Jacob jumped back and watched as dark orange flames blew through the roof. The window smashed and the door flew off and straight into Vic's pack. "No," Vic yelled. "Move everyone now." Thankfully, his pack had started making their way over before this happened. They also wanted to talk to the god, but more humans had sneaked up and climbed through Hunter's window. Jacob spotted them running off into the distance, and a heavy anger washed through him. How dare they ruin what Anthony and Margot have worked for? How dare they think they can do what they want simply because they hate werewolves? There was no fairness to this fight, and he wasn't prepared to let them just run away. Vic's pack made sure they held on to the other humans, but some of them were injured. The door had hit them hard and the glass cut their skin, not to mention the heat of the miniature explosion. Vic turned back to Jacob, but he was gone. He quickly looked around and there was no trace of him. Jacob landed in the forest and one of the humans ran right into him. They fell onto the cold, muddy ground, but he scrambled over and pinned him to the ground as the other one ran away. "Why the hell would you do that?" He yelled and squeezed his arms hard. The guy was out of breath and slightly trembling from the burst of adrenaline. What are you? He breathed and tried, kicking Jacob away. However, this was his godly personality shining through. He was angry, confident and willing to get all the information that he could. "I'm the person you did not want to meet today," he muttered and pushed him harder into the forest floor. He allowed the electricity to appear within his hands, which instantly filled the human with fear. He started to squirm and cry out, "Why did you set fire to that house? Did you know it was empty? Gee, get off me, you freak." The guy yelled and Jacob was fed up of being called that. "Who are you working for?" he asked calmly but sternly, clearly not giving up. In the back of his mind, he couldn't believe he was doing this. "Do you know Thomas and Jillian Smith?" The guy stopped when he heard their names. "You do." Jacob clenched his jaw. "Did they put you up to this? What are they planning? Let me go. Somebody help me," he screeched, making Jacob sigh. He lifted his hand and used his electricity rope that he once used on Hunter and wrapped it around the human's waist. It burnt his coat but not his skin, though he pulled him up and started pushing him through the woods. Back to the house. "Please, whatever you are, don't kill me." Jacob ignored him. How did he ever think that being human was better than being a god? Now he felt devastated for Hunter and his family. They were forced to live somewhere different now, and all of their belongings would be lost to the flames. The evil actions of someone who simply hated them for being who they are have ruined what they have. When he reached the house, Hunter and his family were stood at the fire. The sorrow on their faces told a million words. Anthony had a hand on his wife's shoulder and a hand on his son's. This fight had only just begun, and he was going to stop until he ended this. How could it get this far without him noticing? He felt responsible for the tragedy of his house, but thankful that nobody was home. If Jacob hadn't come back, then Vic and his pack could have been seriously injured. "All our family photos are gone." Margot cowled and held her sadness back and buried her head into her husband's chest. Hunter rubbed her back and tried to look strong in front of his pack. Everyone stood in disbelief. This house has been their home for a long time. Even though it was only temporary, it was still sad to see it being burned to the ground. "At least you have a backup house," Sam said with a little chuckle, but that's how he deals with things. He hates feeling down and defeated. He tries to pick up the mood instantly, even if he knew it wouldn't work. William rested a hand on his shoulder and flashed him a sympathetic smile. He too deals with things in a similar manner. He felt incredibly upset for Hunter and his family, but what did this mean for them, now that the werewolf hunters are clearly targeting them? Nobody is safe. Nobody is dependable and trustworthy. The wolves had to act fast and dig out the roots before they grow. And that means to start with Thomas and Jillian. Hunter would kill them for this, and he didn't have an ounce of hesitation in his body. Chapter 67. Hunter watched the fire brigade point their hoses at his charcoal home, trying to put out the remaining embers of the flames. Everything was gone, or at least somewhat burnt. The front wall had completely collapsed, exposing what was once the living area and the kitchen. An ambulance had arrived to aid Vic and his pack. Nobody was seriously injured, but some needed to go to the hospital to get stitches. The police were also here to take statements and arrest the humans who first attempted to scorch the house. The human who Jacob caught had also been arrested. They were going to let the police do what they had to do with them, and if any were released, they would deal with them privately. "I guess you'll get to see our old home sooner than we thought," Hunter sighed. He was sitting on the grass with everyone else because there was nothing for them to do. The emergency services were taking charge of everything, so all that they could do was watch the smoke twist and turn, spoiling the clear blue sky. Jacob pulled at the grass and tried hard to suppress a storm from brewing. Today's forecast is supposed to be sunny. He needed to stick to the schedule of the weather. He had already started a commotion over the past few days because of the constant thunder and lightning. "What does your old home look like?" he asked quietly. He was going to apologize for not catching the humans sooner, but it was his fault. He had to stop blaming himself for things that couldn't be helped. "It's big." Hunter watched him instead of his home crumbling to the ground. Well, it'll be much bigger now that the extension is almost done. There are 5 bedrooms, all with an suite bathroom. There's a huge garden that links to a field. It's 3 stories which will be weird getting used to after living in a studio for so long. They'll be around every day. Sam beamed. You're around every day anyway. Hunter watched him and they were both still wondering about ZC. Was he in danger? Was he with werewolf hunters? Have they caught him and interrogated him? I think it's time we find out. Jacob was listening to his thoughts and he just wanted this to be over and done with. I don't like feeling on edge. Me neither. Margot's soulful eyes were full of deep despair. I think we should wait until the emergency services are gone first. They told the police that they didn't know why anyone would want to burn their house down and they hardly expected the werewolf hunters to admit who they really are. It was an issue that the authorities did not need to mingle with. 𝐿𝐿thani kicked his feet through the rubble and spotted a family picture. Half of the members had been burnt out of it. He sighed and took one more look around, trying to find anything that he could save, but there was nothing. Come on, Margot. Let's go. He took his wife's hand and squeezed it tight. She had tears in her eyes but followed him, no longer wanting to look at the state her humble abode was in. Nathan stood with Cotton. They both looked incredibly serious. Was this down to my parents? Nathan asked quietly. He was livid by how close his son was to being injured. Yes, unfortunately. That was all Nathan needed to hear as he stormed over to Hunter. If you're planning to go back to my parents' house, I'm coming with you. Hunter opened his mouth, but Nathan hushed him. I haven't seen them since I was 18. I don't feel anything towards them. Especially now. I don't belong here anymore. Jacob watched the storm in his eyes. He could feel his raging determination to banish the evil and for some odd reason. The mission was strong and pulsing through his veins. Nathan was a key pawn in this operation. He could feel it. I'm coming to. Vic appeared behind his father with slightly troubled eyes. I want to help. No, Hunter crossed his arms and didn't lighten his gaze. Son, you're not. I am. Vic interrupted his dad, knowing he was going to try and talk him out of it. They are my estranged family. There's someone I want to show them that they are missing out on a family who they could have had a life with. Jacob then saw his slight heartbreak. Thomas and Jillian had been a part of his life ever since he was born, and they completely ignored Vic and his family. That obviously hurt a lot. However, he looked revengeful and he didn't want feelings to get in the way of actions. Sorry, Vic. You can't be part of this. Jacob's voice was timid, but he could feel that it was a good idea for him to be involved. Hunter narrowed his eyes when Vic began to glare at him. You've had the privilege of being loved by your family when they ignored us. You can't just. Don't go there. William joined in. You have no idea what you're talking about. Our grandparents hated Jacob. I don't think it's possible for them to love anyone but themselves. I get that you're family, but don't act like you know us. All right. Settle down. Nathan warned when Scott walked over. Vic, you're not coming with us. I don't want to hear another word about it. Scott placed a gentle hand on William's shoulder. He still had to tell them about their mother running away and wanting a divorce, but they could be told at a less stressful time. We have to make up for lost years, and being civil with one another is a start. I know you missed out on being with your dad's family, but trust me, Nathan's parents are not worth anyone's time of day. Also, we're here now and it's better to be late than not being here at all, yes. Vic looked down to his hands and nodded. Scott then turned to Jacob. A lot of responsibility was on his shoulders and he needed to make sure that he was carrying it. Although Hunter was there to support that load at any time. Whatever you feel like you have to do, you'll never be alone doing it. Just because you're the god of the wolves doesn't mean that you don't need help. I'm not quite sure how your mind processes things now, and how you feel the world and how you see it compared to me. But if any of us can offer any form of support, then we will. Jacob nodded and gave him a little smile. That means a lot. Thanks, Dad. Scott beamed and gave his shoulder a little pat. Right? Go do what you have to do. I'm going to help Margot and Anthony sort out this mess. Hunter turned to his mate with questioning eyes. What's the plan, lightning boy? Jacob sighed and ignored that comment. I think we should turn up to my grandparents' house with Nathan. I know they're psychotic, but they're human and must have a little bit of regret for abandoning him. I hope so, or this plan could quite easily backfire. Nathan added, but just whip out your lightning stuff and that should shut them up. He was nervous. He cut his parents out of his life because they cut him out of theirs. That included simply thinking about them, his childhood, and what they were up to on a daily basis. It was hard, of course, but he managed to do it. Jacob was also nervous. They didn't really have a plan because he was powerful and could take control very quickly. But what if he froze if danger did occur? You didn't when you caught that human. Hunter thought and forcefully wrapped his arms around him. I'm so proud of you for that. It was a brave thing to do. You surprised yourself, didn't you? Jacob watched his face grow closer. Feeling the warmth of his arms around him was starting to feel normal, but it still filled him with a sudden burst of affection. I did surprise myself. I don't know where I got the confidence. Hunter smiled and gave him no warning before kissing his soft lips. He didn't need to anymore because he knew Jacob was going to freak out. His mental stability was getting stronger each day. Jacob kissed back and no longer cared who watched or whether he was doing it right or if Hunter was judging him. He simply allowed it to happen, and it felt great. Come on then, Hunter thought after pulling away and softly squeezing his waist. I do believe we have some people to argue with. Let's just get this over and done with. Nathan breathed. His heart was pumping so hard in his chest. They were standing outside his family home, which he hasn't seen in a very long time. It still looked plain and unloved from the outside. Hunter looked at the same door he was standing in front of before his beloved home was burned to a crisp. He was under strict instructions by Jacob not to lose his temper. However, he is very aware that he is too hot-headed and might not be able to stick to that task. He lifted his hand and rang the doorbell. It dawned on him that he had every right to barge in, but he could feel Jacob's eyes on him, so he took a breath and clenched his teeth. Nathan's hands were almost trembling, but he had to pull himself together because he could be in a lot of danger and needed to be in the right frame of mind for Jacob and Hunter. His pack, Hunter's pack and Anthony's pack, were not too far away. Just like last time, when he saw an outline of someone coming to the door. He held his breath. It was Jillian who answered this time, and the look in her eyes when she first saw Jacob was pure filth. Her stare turned into a glare of deep hatred when she saw Hunter. She tensed and opened her mouth to shout her husband, but that was when her eyes landed on her son. Their gaze connected and her mouth slowly opened. A jolt of surprise spread for her expression, and for a second, he was the only thing she saw. Nathan, she whispered, and Jacob heard the quiver of emotion roll off her tongue. Her son was standing before her after all these years, and she was not prepared for the explosion in her heart. Who is it? They heard the rugged voice of Thomas yell, which was shortly followed by an unusual murmur. It almost sounded like a little cry. Hunter and Jacob both discreetly nudged each other, indicating that they heard it. However, Jillian didn't respond to her husband because she was so captivated by the sight of her child. Clearly, she missed him. Jillian. Thomas' muffled voice echoed through the hallway. Close that damn door. He has not got long left to speak. Hunter glanced at Jacob, and 𝐶𝐴C filled his mind. This had to be him. Who else could it be? Jacob felt his patience break, and he suddenly stormed past Nathan's mother and into their home. A hunter. Jacob yelled and ran after him, leaving Nathan with a choice. He could either talk to his mother or help the boys. He has lived for so long without his parents, and he was prepared to let them into his life. Not now. So he ran after the boys and left his mother to shock to move. Standing hopelessly in her doorway, Hunter looked frantically around. He invaded the living room, the dining room, and the kitchen until he spotted stairs leading down to a basement. The light at the bottom was on, leaving an eerie glow to fade up the concrete steps. He didn't think twice before bolting down them. He knew Jacob was far behind him, but any form of a plan had gone, and he was in too deep to back out now. Jacob didn't want him to do this, but 𝐶𝐴C was a member of his pack, and if he was in trouble, they needed to help him. Yes, he was only his Omega, but smaller packs tend to be closer with their friendship. When he reached the bottom of the steps, he saw Thomas leaning over someone and checking his heartbeat. Whoever it was, they were chained to a radiator and clearly in trouble. Thomas tried getting to his feet, but Hunter sprinted up to him and pushed him over. He hit his head hard against the wall, which temporarily weakened his defenses. Jacob ran over to Hunter with electricity pulsing and flickering from his hands as a warning to any threats. But his eyes widened when he realized that the prisoner was in fact 𝐶𝐴C. "Hey," Hunter breathed and shook his limp arms. "𝐶𝐴C, can you hear me?" His skin was pale. His eyes were closed and his body was completely still. Jacob's eyes instantly lost their light, while he knelt next to him and brought a hand up to his neck. His skin was cold against his warm fingertips as they searched for a heartbeat. Hunter stopped 𝐶𝐴CF from drooping down and tapped his cheeks 𝐶𝐴CF. He said again, but he was getting no response. "Hunter," Jacob whispered when 𝐁𝐴 reached the bottom of the stairs. "I can't find his pulse." Chapter 68 Oh God. Hunter breathed and checked for himself if he could find a heartbeat. "What have you done to him?" He roared and stared at Thomas with a raging fire in his eyes. 𝐁𝐴 ran over, ignoring his dad, who looked injured. He didn't care about him. What they have done to this innocent young Omega was unthinkable, disgusting and repulsive. Poor 𝐶𝐴C has done nothing in his life to have it stopped by the hands of evil. He pulled at his chains. They were too strong and tough. He could see the marks on the radiator where 𝐶𝐴C had clearly been struggling to set himself free. Jacob stared at his pale face. Still, there was a sense of attachment to him. He was a member of Hunter's pack, and he could not let him die without trying everything he could to save him. Hunter had reached the end of his tether. His mind pulled free from his patience, letting him run over to Thomas and hit him in the mouth. "You monster!" He yelled and punched him again. 𝐁𝐴 ran over to pry him off his estranged parent. However, seeing him attacked and weak in his own home was not unsettling. He was getting what he deserved. But did Hunter want murder on his reputation? No. "I need to kill him." "Hunter." 𝐁𝐴 was elbowed in the face when he wrapped his arms around him and pulled him back. "Stop. It's better to let them rot for the rest of their lives." Thomas rolled onto his side and held his broken jaw. He saw his son the first time since he was 18. Now he was a man, an adult, and his life went on without him. He blinked in pain and shock. He missed him but could not bring himself to be a part of his life if he was bonded to a werewolf. Jacob leaned over and tugged at the chains. If he lies AC down, he might be able to shock his heart back to life. It was very unlikely at this stage, and he had to get his heart beating through CPR before he could be a human defibrillator. But he had to try. "Someone, call an ambulance." He breathed and kept pulling. He stopped, took a breath and gave one last forceful tug, snapping the metal chains. He gasped in shock, not quite believing he managed to do that. Now was not the time to focus on his strength, as he pulled 𝐶𝐴C away from the radiator, needing to lay him on the floor. He pulled open his shirt and rested his hands on his chest, beginning the grueling process of restarting his heart. 𝐁𝐴 ran over and gave him mouth-to-mouth when necessary. Jacob was nervous about shocking him. If he forced too much electricity into his body, he would definitely end his life, so he needed to find the right balance. When there was a glimpse of an irregular beat, Jacob turned to see 𝐁𝐴 and staring hard. "You can do this." He spoke smoothly. "You can bring him back to life." Jacob. His eyes were so similar to Grace, oddly giving Jacob a little bit of courage. He located Hunter sitting in the corner of the room. He was breathing heavy and staring with wide, angry eyes at Thomas, who was unconscious. Hunter's mind was screaming at him to kill him, but he did everything he could to resist. "Call an ambulance," Jacob said again and took a very big breath. "Please, help me." He wasn't sure who that was directed to, yet the other gods were in his soul. He could feel their unconscious support. A sudden wave of electricity shot through his palms and into 𝐶𝐴C's heart. His body jumped at the shock, but there was no rhythmic beat. Again, 𝐁𝐴 said and called for an ambulance. His parents would be taken by the police because they were taken by the wolves. They would not get out alive. They deserved to decay in cells and never see the light of day again. Jacob shocked him, and this time, there was a small jolt in his heart, but it didn't stay steady. He clenched his teeth and rubbed his hands together. They say, third time's the charm. When it's with someone's life, He really is a 𝐿𝐿𝐷𝐿𝐷. Really wanted that to be true. He placed his warm hands on his chest once more and pushed the power through his palms. Nathan and Hunter watched the yellow sparks ignite him and shocked his body. Jacob's eyes opened wide when there was a solid and consistent pulse. "I did it," he yelled. Hunter climbed to his feet and ran over when Nathan pressed his fingers against 𝐿𝐴𝐶's neck, feeling a consistent beat. He squeezed Jacob's shoulder. Immense pride grew within him for his nephew. The ambulance should be here soon. He looked around to see his mother crouching by her unconscious husband. "How could you do this?" he growled. She looked up with teary eyes, sniffed back her sadness, and stroked her husband's head. "HCS filth," she whispered. "And so are you." Nathan's heart was ripped from his body. What a horrible thing to hear from a mother who abandoned him for all this time. Jacob understood where his own mother found her courage to ruin him. By the looks of it, it runs in the family. That's it. killing you. Hunter turned with eyes so deadly. Jillian saw her life slip away in them. Jacob turned to and grabbed him. "No. Let me go. They deserve this." Jacob wrestled him to the ground, the mystery strength coming back to his body, helping hold down his raging boyfriend. "Stop. You don't know how dangerous it is to kill these, Jacob." Hunter hated that he couldn't fight against him. "I need revenge." Jacob cupped his chin hard and pushed him against the floor. He forced him to look in his direction. "They will go to prison for a long, long time." He breathed. "I don't want to look at you and know that you killed my grandparents." Hunter stopped fighting against him and connected their gaze. "I'm so angry, Jacob," he said through gritted teeth. At this moment, he was glad that his mate was stronger than him. When he calms down, he'll be thankful that his actions were stopped. "I know." Jacob leaned forwards and rested their foreheads together. He knew it would somewhat relax him. "You have every right to be." Hunter was so emotional. He could cry for 1,000 people. He could scream and be heard for miles. He could kill without an ounce of regret. But he could love with the strongest of hearts. Releasing Jacob allowed him to smother his warm comforts onto him. "HS breathing," Nathan said when he heard the front door opened. "Hello," a female voice of a presumed paramedic, and into the basement. "We need to go." Nathan ran over and pulled the boys up. "The police are most likely here. We can go out the back. We can't be involved with the authorities twice in one day." He had a point. Things could link together by themselves without having suspects to point at. "Okay." Jacob got up and pulled Hunter up to who stared at his omega wolf butt. "He has a fighting chance now." Nathan pushed them towards a door, leading up to a side street behind the house. "We need to go." Hunter didn't feel right about leaving him, but someone was coming down the stairs. He sighed and allowed Jacob to force him through the back door. They all sprinted up the steps and down the alleyway, not daring to look behind them. "Keep going." Nathan was far from okay. Looking strong in front of the boys was very important. Although he didn't know that Jacob knew exactly how he was feeling. They ran until they reached the woods, then changed into their wolves. Jacob was still in his godly frame of mind, and his magnificent wolf shocked Nathan. It was gigantic, much bigger than him and Hunter. However, Hunter's beautiful purple markings were breathtaking, and he kept glancing at them while they ran. Jacob had not taken the time to think about how and why Nathan was a wolf. Hunter explained to him in his head that he was a werewolf already and connecting with his wife. 𝐾𝐿𝐴 brought it to the surface. Now that would mean there are not only wolves on his father's side, but wolves on his mother's side too. "HS going to be okay, Hunter." Anthony sat next to him in the hospital. Putting an arm around his shoulders felt like the only thing he could do to comfort his son. "HS stable and getting the help he needs." Hunter nodded and took a big breath. "I almost killed Thomas." Anthony hushed him and looked around. "Here is not the place. Come on. I think it's time for us to talk." He pulled his son up and started walking with him down the white corridor. It smelled strong of cleaning products and was familiar to Anthony. He really hated hospitals. Nobody else was here apart from them. Everyone else was discussing with Jacob about what had happened at the house, and 𝐿𝐨 led his son through the long corridors and outside. His truck was parked not too far away, but when he saw it, he stopped and stared with confusion. It had been vandalized with spray paint. On the side of the van now said, 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐃. 𝐿𝐨 chuckled and shook his head. If they spelled that correctly, I would be mad. He patted his son on the shoulder and brushed off the insult. However, this was no laughing matter. They were getting targeted and it would soon grow out of hand if they did not take charge of the situation. Hopefully, now that the presumed leaders have been arrested, the followers will back off. That might not be the case. Their anger has only been fueled to a greater level, judging by the need to vandalize in a public area. They climbed into the van, and as soon as the doors closed, 𝐿𝐨 turned to his son, gently nudging him in the process. Tell me what you're thinking about. Hunter sat back in his seat and chewed the inside of his lip. Not really. I know you're slowly deteriorating. You're having nightmares again, and it's not like you to almost kill someone. Your anger got a hold of you. They basically killed the AC. How could you expect my anger not to boil over? You don't even hunt to kill, son. I know how you feel about it. After Mom and Dad, stop. I don't want to talk about that. Why not? You're clearly thinking about it a lot. Hunter clenched his jaw and stared out of the window. When he didn't reply, 𝐿𝐨 continued. You can't keep avoiding it. I bet you haven't even told Jacob. 𝐿𝐨 lightly tapped his shoulder, wanting his eyes to meet his. It's okay if you're struggling with it. A lot has changed in these past few weeks. You are mentally strong, but for the wrong reasons. Tell me how you feel. I need to know. Hunter crossed his arms and watched his comforting eyes. It's just the nightmares, he mumbled. Stopping myself from thinking about it is hard, but now I have no choice. I always wake up feeling like it just happened. It's horrible. I don't know why your nightmares have come back after so many years. But you have to stop blaming yourself. I know you do. It's hard to see you go through this again. 𝐿𝐨 had something to admit. I was talking to Scott about it, and well, you know the guy who crashed into the car and then jumped into the river to save you. Hunter nodded. He was feeling an immense pain of sorrow. Well, that was Scott's father. The noise of ambulances, the public, and the overall chaos of a hospital surrounded their vehicle. Hunter subconsciously watched someone on crutches limp their way to the accident and emergency entrance. His mind felt like a million miles away. What? His eyebrows curled into an extensive frown, confusing his eyes and altering his mouth. That was my reaction. But Jacob and William lost their granddad that night too. I know it's not the same because you were there, alone for so long. 𝐿𝐨 looked down, showing his dejection wouldn't help. And it baffles me that our families are intertwined in this way. But you should talk to your mate about it. He won't know because we found out not too long ago. Hunter bit his tongue, making himself able to swallow his tears. I can't believe it. He breathed. Jacob's granddad saved my life. 𝐿𝐨 nodded. I can't believe it either. They both jumped when a voice came from the back seats. Jacob jumped when they both turned to look at him. Their wide eyes and tense bodies were amusing, but the situation was serious. Jesus Christ. 𝐿𝐨 put a hand on his heart. It was beating hard. You scared me. That's not Jesus. Hunter allowed the humor back into his eyes. He didn't want to look weak in front of his mate. 𝐿𝐨 flashed him his amused stare. Yet his concentration remained on Jacob. What are you doing here? Actually, how long have you been here? Well, I felt Hunter's sadness and I wanted to see if he was okay. I accidentally heard everything. Jacob blinked his fingers together and squeezed them, trying not to fidget. He sat forwards and stared at his mate. Is it true about my granddad? Why didn't you tell me your nightmares were about something that actually happened to you? He wouldn't usually question things like this. His confidence was growing because he was getting comfortable in their presence. Not having his mother around was a big impact on him. It's true. 𝐿𝐨 was still getting over the shock of him suddenly being there. It was nice to see him testing out his powers. He saved Hunter's life. I know what happened. 𝐏𝐤𝐳 didn't pull his gaze away from those beautiful gray ones. Making eye contact with Hunter used to be hard for him. My granddad crashed his car and died trying to save their victims. It was a freak accident. His voice was quiet, as usual. I didn't know it was you or your grandparents. It happened ages ago. I don't know why I'm feeling so caught up in it still. Hunter turned and his grief pulsed through Jacob. It's stupid. It's not. He moved further forwards, resting his chin on Hunter's shoulder in the process. His warm breath stroked his cheek and the werewolf was forced to feel his comforts over his sadness. There's no sell-by date for your feelings. Keeping things locked inside is hard. I know that more than anyone. Jacob trailed off when his eyes caught sight of something. His hair stood on end, the air catching in mid-breath. Hunter turned his head after he paused for too long. What is it? Anthony followed his stare, not able to detect anything irregular. Jacob's chocolate brown eyes can see things beyond what even a werewolf is capable of. Jacob moved slowly, his eyes not daring to blink. I can see 𝐿𝐳𝐳. Chapter 16 𝐿𝐳𝐳. Anthony frantically searched the area with his eyes, still not seeing her. That is not possible. Yeah, Chess. Jacob blinked, yet mysteriously lost her in his sight. What? I can't see her anymore. He searched, just like what Anthony and Hunter were doing. Chess gone. Hunter was glad the attention was away from him for a while. At least. Are you sure it was a look-alike? He questioned. No, I definitely saw her. Anthony started the engine with a concerned frown. He'll call the prison to make sure Chess still there. Jacob, if you be prepared. Knowing your God will belittle her massive ego. There is no way she could have escaped. Their werewolf prison is one of the most secure places for wolf criminals in the world. I hope I was just seeing things. Jacob sat on the chair in the back of the truck. Was his mind playing tricks on him? Did he see someone who just happened to look like her? After driving for 20 minutes, they approached a big metal gate. It was very grand and Anthony had to type in a code for it to open. When it did, it unlatched from the middle, allowing them to drive down the cobbled path. Where are we? Jacob thought to Hunter, looking around in awe. The grass was trimmed to perfection and the flowers were simply beautiful. Pink orchids and bright sunflowers lined up in neat rows, next to plump-looking roses of different colors. This is our old house. It looks really different. Hunter also looked around with surprise. It never used to look this fancy. Wow, Jacob breathed when they parked the rugged truck outside a beautiful, big building. The first thing he noticed was a polished ruby red door. Next to it, mounted to the brick wall, was what looked like the base of a tree trunk. Carved into it was Hunter's last name, the 𝐊𝐳𝐳 household. Jacob read out loud with excited eyes. Dad, why is it so posh looking? Hunter asked. There were two beautiful white marble pillars, sitting on either side of the door. It's not bad to want nice things in life, son. Anthony grinned. But your mom was very particular about what her dream home should look like. And, to be honest, I'm impressed. He climbed out of the big truck when the front door opened. Sam was first to jog through the door and down the white marble steps. I hope these don't get broken. I can fix wood but not marble. He chuckled. Anthony crossed his arms, feeling a little better about this day. Seeing his home so beautiful made it worth living in the tiny studio for so long. However, it brought their family closer together and it will be dearly missed. Only Jacob is strong enough to break these. If he ever breaks them, I can guarantee Hunter will have something to do with it. Hunter rolled his eyes behind his dad's back and walked towards the door. Is everyone inside? Yes. You have 1 minute to find a bedroom or I'm picking for you. Seriously, yes. But avoid the back of the building. There are painters in there, sorting out the last bathroom. Hunter and Sam grinned at each other before running into the building, searching for the stairs. Anthony turned to Jacob, who was nervously watching a bodyguard. These are werewolves, offering their services to our family. It won't be forever because we will get the wolf hunters under control. He reassured the god. It gives us peace of mind knowing that our home is secure and in the view of safe eyes. Is the first mission over yet? Jacob shook his head. Not yet. I don't know what else we have to do, but I have a feeling it will come to Hunter soon. 𝐴nthony nodded. Let us know if we can help with anything in any way. Okay. Right, go on then. Find Hunter and make sure he and Sam are not destroying the house already. As soon as Jacob was gone, the twinkle in Anthony's eyes dropped, as did the light feeling in his heart. Turning to the bodyguard, he could only express his serious emotion. If anyone at all approaches those gates, do not take it lightly. Our van was vandalized today. This situation is serious. The bodyguard nodded. Yes, Alpha. We will keep your home protected. Anthony gave a nod of appreciation before entering the house, wanting to have a look around himself. This room is massive. Sam breathed. I want it. Hunter opened the walk-in wardrobe with wide eyes. This home was big before. Now it exceeded his expectations by such a long way. You don't live here, he mumbled when there was a knock on the door. They both turned to see the rest of his pack looking around in awe too. Hey boys. Hunter crossed his arms. Knowing one person was missing, he had to give them more detail. Come in. He could invite them in because he has not yet chosen this as his territory. Alpha. Jonas spoke when they all sat on the floor, feeling concern for 𝐶𝐸. How is he doing? Hunter crossed his legs and linked his fingers together. 𝐻ES stable and hopefully. He'll make a strong recovery. He looked them confidently in the eye. He was drugged with. I can't remember the name. It's illegal in this country and they gave him so much that he overdosed. That is why we held and connect our mind links. But this could lead to all kinds of complications. Especially after being clinically dead for a few minutes. He'll be lucky to return to his normal self. The atmosphere grew thick around them. If he doesn't make a full recovery, will he still be in the pack? Ricky questioned. Of course. Hunter nodded. It would be wrong of me to turn my back on him when he needs us the most. They nodded, respecting him immensely. We will visit him tomorrow. His family need time with him for now. Just then, a figure hovered at the doorway. Hunter looked up to see Vic, contemplating turning away, not wanting to interrupt their meeting. Sorry. He frowned and clenched his jaw. I just wanted to make sure you were okay after. He trailed off, not pretending to be good at expressing sympathy. My dad is pretty torn up about it. Sam watched his alpha. If this happened a few weeks ago, Hunter would yell at him to go away and not question his stability. But now, he has been taught by his mate that it's okay to be emotional. Sometimes. Hunter stood up with a little sigh. Boys, make yourself at home. We'll have an official pack meeting after dinner. They nodded and when he was out of sight, they turned to Sam. Don't throw your questions at me. I know 𝐻ES being distant with the pack, but 𝐻ES going through a lot. Give it a week or two and all this should settle down. Sam's eye then caught someone walking past the doorway. William. William stopped, took a few steps back and entered to see them sitting on the floor and, you look like you're summoning a ghost or something. He chuckled. Come and join us. Sam beamed. He was still trying to do everything he could to include him into this new lifestyle. And we're not summoning a ghost. We're summoning a demon. William stopped and the pack laughed. 𝐻ES joking. Harris nodded. For now. Hunter and Vic walked down the corridor until they reached another empty room. Hunter went over and sat on the edge of the bed. Is Nathan going to be okay? Vic nodded. I think so. Seeing his parents was harder than what he thought it would be. He mumbled. This situation was incredibly awkward for them. Being in each other's presence was hard enough. Now they were alone and had no other choice but to pay attention. Look. Hunter. I know we've clashed in the past and we have never really got on, but I want to try and be friends with you. You're so cocky and arrogant most of the time. It's pretty impossible. You want to be friends with me, yet you've just insulted me. Hunter stared hard into his eyes, challenging him. This is what I mean. You're too difficult to talk to when you think you're so superior. It's rude. And this is why you irritate me. Always trying to pick a fight. You started it. Hunter crossed his arms. I'm gonna be honest here. I don't like you, and if you were not related to Jacob, I would never make the effort to like you. I don't like you either. You're self-centered. Your ego is bigger than this room and you're gay. Hunter didn't expect him to say the last one. He didn't think he was homophobic. Not with such open-minded parents. Being gay is a reason you hate me. Look, I'll accept it because you're excuse me. Hunter's anger started pulsing through him. I'm not asking for your acceptance. I couldn't care less what you think about me, but you've just made it pretty clear that you will never, ever be a part of this family. I already am. Vic started to look smug. Hunter took a calming breath. Punching him felt very, very satisfying right now. I should have known you would be like this. I'm done with trying. There's no point. He stood up, surprisingly catching eye contact with Nathan, who was standing in the doorway. He was staring at his son with a mortified expression. Vic froze like a deer in the headlights. Vic, he breathed. Hunter could almost see the steam pouring out of his ears. What the hell is wrong with you? What? His voice was far from confident. I'm just saying what I feel. You know what? Nathan was done with his bullying. You remind me of my dad more and more every day. I'm so fed up of you being this judgmental. Hating someone simply because they are attracted to the same gender is the most pathetic thing I have ever heard. Hunter dug his fingernails into his palms, trying not to smirk. Dad, I know. I've had enough. You owe him an apology. Right now. Nathan was deeply embarrassed. Vic could not cope with his dad's mad side, so he crossed his arms and glumly looked at the ground. Sorry, he mumbled. Nathan shook his head and clenched his teeth. You're not 10 years old, he yelled, running a hand through his hair. He could no longer argue. Today has been tough for him. Go home. Vic will talk about this later, but do not question me. Hunter was seeing his anger and he would not like to be in the target range. Now go home. They watched him stomp out of the room like an exasperating little child. I'm so sorry, Hunter. Nathan breathed and removed himself from the situation by walking the opposite way, leaving Hunter alone in the room. He shrugged to himself and looked around. Vic was nobody to him, and his words didn't even scratch the surface of his compact mind. His eyes examined the huge bedroom with a king-size double bed in the right corner. It was bare with no character. This meant that he could do whatever he wanted, seeing it as a blank canvas. Wandering into the sweet bathroom, he saw that there was one huge bath and one huge shower, both sitting in separate corners of the tiled room. There were his and her sinks, which caused him to shake his head. He walked over and started pulling at the her sign, glued onto the tile. When he was successful at removing it, a big smile spread across his face. Knowing this was his room, he turned when there was movement in the bedroom, only to see his mother hitting his father with a cushion. Nope, you're too late. He grinned and walked into view. This is my room. Margot sighed and hit Anthony again. I've been eyeing this room up for ages. How unfortunate. Hunter chuckled and handed her the plaque he pulled off the wall. Anthony laughed. I'll order his plaque then, shall I? Studying him. He had a question. Do you think Scott and his family would like living here? You'd ask them to move in. Well, I don't think they'll be able to live in their own home for much longer. Grace left a note saying that she was basically abandoning the family and divorcing Scott. Hunter raised his eyebrows, not really knowing what to say, as he told William and Jacob about it. Margot shook her head. He doesn't know how to. Hunter was about to respond, but he smelt his mate. He turned to see him approaching the doorway with a twinkle in his eyes, wanting to immediately change the subject. He rushed over and flung his arms around him. Jacob fell into the wall with a confused frown. Hunter was clinging on rather tightly. What do you think of this bedroom? He mumbled into his shoulder, his scent filling him with pleasure. Jacob looked around with the limited movement of his head. Yeah, it's nice. I like it too. Hunter grinned and pulled his head back. It's ours. Jacob moved his gaze from the huge window, looking out across the massive garden. To Hunter's magnificent gray eyes. He loved how they were so magical and full of emotion. Ours. Well, which well? You basically lived in our little cabin for a week. I don't think it would be much different here. Jacob's mind flashed to what life was like only a short few weeks ago. He found it hard to sleep longer than for hours at a time. He thought he was crazy, living with a voice in his head. His mother and father were happily married. He struggled to look at people, let alone talk to them. He didn't know who he was, where he was going in life and where he wanted to be. Having no real dream and feeling close to giving up, Jacob Jones was slowly caving in. Not once did he imagine that he would be this person in such a compressed amount of time. Hunter watched the sides of his mouth curl into a little smile, remembering when those were incredibly rare to witness. I love your smile. Margot and Anthony slowly edged towards the door. Their son had to claim his territory by filling it with his scent. Also, they had to ask Scott about Grayson when he was going to tell his boys. It doesn't sound so creepy anymore. Jacob used to hate it when the voice said things like that to him. Thinking back on all the odd stuff as 𝐴𝐺𝐵 made sense, now that he knew it was Hunter. I am still sorry, though. For what I did to you, Jacob didn't want to hear it. He has forgiven him. It should not be mentioned again. Leaning forwards, he silenced the werewolf with a kiss on the lips. Their hearts sparked together and filled with warmth. Hunter instantly kissed him back, never wanting to miss the opportunity. I think, Jacob whispered, only pulling his head back a few centimeters, allowing his mate to feel his breath against his lips. We have a few things to talk about. Hunter opened his eyes. What a way to kill the mood. Jacob's eyes turned rather serious. Why didn't you tell me about your grandparents? Hunter's heart crippled at the distant memory which haunts him every day. Because I didn't want you to feel sorry for me. Jacob furrowed his eyebrows. I don't. Well, I do a little. I can't imagine going through something so horrible. It's not fair for you to feel like you can't tell anyone. Hunter looked down and took a big breath. I was a mess, Jacob. I still am in small ways, I guess. I can't swim in even baths petrify me. I can't hunt because killing just takes me right back to that day. Almost killing Thomas made me feel sick. I was disgusted with myself. Jacob appreciated all the help he has received from Hunter. He has nursed him, given him time and patched together his frail mind. But now, it was time to step up and give something back that will make a difference. Sliding his fingers down his arm, he took his hand and started pulling him towards the bathroom. What are you doing? We're having a bath. Hunter stopped walking, causing Jacob to turn. What like? Right now. Jacob nodded. His cheeks were bright pink. I'm going to help you get over your fear of water. I think a bath is a good place to start. Hunter's pupils instantly dilated. So does that mean I can see you naked again? His cheeky personality was shining through. Jacob tried very hard not to roll his eyes and melt with embarrassment. Is that all you think about? He turned and continued towards the bathroom, happy to see it had a lock on the door. Hunter was now eagerly following him, slowly forgetting about the stress of today. Spending time with Jacob was enough to cure his troubled mind. Only for a little while, so. Is that a yes?